Everyone, please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection in this week that we celebrate Veterans Day, the men and women who serve and have served in the armed forces of the United States. On this night that we declare the month Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, for those who have struggled with this insidious disease, especially former City of Scranton employees Jay Saunders and Jerry Grabowski, and for all who have passed away in our community during these past weeks, especially longtime city employee Bill Fiorini. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahan?
Here.
Mr. McGough?
Here. We do have a proclamation to present this evening. Ask that council members, if we could move to the front of the dais at this time, and please.
Hi, Councilman Evans.
We'll move this down. Whereas in 2014, an estimated 46,420 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 39,530 will die from the disease. Approximately 1,990 of those deaths will occur in Pennsylvania in 2014. And whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is currently the fourth leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become second by 2020. And whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 6%. And whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of the diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas the Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act was signed into law in 2013, which calls on the National Cancer Institute to develop a scientific framework for strategic plans for pancreatic cancer and other deadly cancers, which will help provide the strategic direction and guidance needed to make true progress against these diseases. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in Scranton and nationwide, through a comprehensive approach to include public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness, and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer. as well as to those who have lost their lives to this disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. And whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Scranton are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now therefore be it resolved that on Thursday, November 13th, 2014, Scranton City Council wishes to designate the month of November 2014 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in Scranton. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be made a permanent part of the minutes of this council. Present this to Mrs. Connors and all the members of the Pancreatic Cancer Network. Action Network. Thank you, Ms. Gray. Yes, please. Thank you. At this time, Mrs. Connors would like to address council and the public via TCTV.
I will be brief. I just want to thank all the councilmen for this proclamation and for bringing awareness to pancreatic cancer. As Mr. McGough said at the beginning, that former city clerk Jay Saunders passed away actually 2 years ago yesterday. Jerry Grabowski passed away 8 years ago, and my sister-in-law and former Mayor Jim Connors' sister Tina Connors passed away in January of 1994. So we are still continuing this battle. In fact, today, November 13th, was Purple for a Purpose Day, and I appreciate that you're all wearing purple ties and or purple shirt. And it's also World Pancreatic Cancer Day. I just want to read something very briefly. You know, we face a formidable enemy, one that takes 94% of its victims within 5 years. We have lost our best and our brightest, our family, our friends, but we will never lose our resolve. We know what we must do, wage hope. We are the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. We are fighting a terrible disease. We will champion the promise of a brighter tomorrow, and this is our heartfelt battle cry, wage hope. And another thing we're doing in order to raise awareness for pancreatic cancer, it will be the 5th Pizza by Papa's fundraiser next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday, November 18th and 19th. Bill and Tom Shikowski, the owners of Papa's Pizza, donate 50% of their pizza sales over those 2 days to the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And over the last 4 years, he has donated over $25,000 to our cause. So again, I thank you very much for bringing awareness to this disease.
Thank you very much. Yes. And again, on behalf of council, we would like to thank the Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Network for the great work that they do in addressing this very significant problem. Thank you. Dispense with the reading of the minutes. Third order.
Third order, 3A, Sapa Comprehensive Plan Recommendation from City Planning Commission received October 28, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B, Agenda for the Board of Zoning Appeals held November 12, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C, Tax Assessors Results Reports for hearing dates held October 16 and 22, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3D, Single Tax Office City Funds Distributed Report Comparison 2014-2013.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3E, Tax Assessors Report for hearing dates to be held December 3 and 4, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3F, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held on October 22, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Are there any announcements from council?
I have one.
Please.
Thank you. The week of November 17th, there will be no paper pickup to allow for leaves to be picked up throughout the city from the DPW. People are encouraged to bag their leaves, and the DPW will be around to pick those bags up. Thank you.
Also, in kind of the same vein for the evening, this Sunday at 9 o'clock is the Coaches versus Cancer breakfast. If anyone would like to attend, tickets can be purchased at the door. Breakfast starts at 9 a.m. And the funds do go to the Coaches versus Cancer program. Many of the funds used directly in the Scranton area for various cancer-related purposes. And if you do decide to go to the dinner, or the breakfast, it is at Scranton Prep High School, 9 o'clock on this coming Sunday, and I know they have at least one distinguished speaker. Moi. Also, just for kind of general knowledge sake, the next couple of weeks with council become extremely busy, and I'd just like to at least make people aware of what will be taking place in the coming meetings. First of all, on November 20th at 5 o'clock, there will be a hearing on Sapa. Sapa will be reintroduced. There will be a public hearing at 5 o'clock, and there will be a motion that evening to bring Sapa legislation back in seventh order for a final vote. Also next, at the November 20th meeting at 5:30, there will be a public hearing on the budget. We must hold that public hearing by December 1st, and so with Thanksgiving being a Thursday, the public hearing on the budget will be held next week at 5:30. Also, next week, busy week, there will be during our caucus time, and we will hold the caucus here in council chambers, there will be representatives from OECD to explain the legislation, the loan legislation that is on tonight's agenda, dealing with I think it's Steamtown Mall Partners. Is that correct? So that will be immediately following the budget hearing, the public hearing on the budget. If it extends into the meeting time, we will start the meeting late. There will be no meeting on the 27th because of Thanksgiving. On December 4th, no? Okay. December 11th, the Audubon legislation dealing with Audubon, which will be tabled tonight, will be brought back from the table. And then on the 18th of December, which will be our last meeting of the year, there will be a public hearing at 5:30 on the zoning change for Audubon, and that will be brought back in seventh order on that evening for a final vote. So a number of things taking place over the course of the next few weeks. If you have any questions about any of that or what's taking place, please feel free to, contact the clerk's office for that information. And thank you.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Joan Hodowanitz.
Good evening, Council. Joan Hodawan, Scranton. Last couple of days, I've been attending the public hearings on Colt's proposed reduction in services. And I went to the one that was held last night at 5 p.m. The session was hosted by, I believe he pronounces his name, Mr. Fume, who is the executive director of Colt's. And he opened his remarks to the public by saying that Colt's had been overfunded and therefore had to repay $6 million. I don't know what overfunded means. I think it's Orwellian newspeak, but something is not right over at Colt's. Maybe it's right now, it wasn't right in the past, but something is wrong. I don't think PennDOT, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I know the overfunding is based on the senior citizens
Oh,
numbers.
I understand that, but the term overfunded, I don't think you'll find that in any dictionary I ever read.
No.
Let's face it, something is wrong over there, and if we have to do something as drastic as eliminate all Saturday service, we need to get to the bottom of this. I think something not legal was done, and so we've been put in this position. I wrote you all a letter in which I've asked you to consider getting together with other local representatives about what might be done to change the plan that they're looking at right now, because if Colts goes ahead and cuts all Saturday service and adjusts a lot of the weekday routes and times, a lot of people are going to be hurt. This is a quality of life issue, okay? I know it's not on your agenda and it's not going to come up under legislation, but as representatives of the people of Scranton, you should care that people are going to lose jobs, people are going to find it hard to get around. I'm one of those people that rides the bus 6 days a week. Yes, sir.
Just to interject, I know Representative Flynn
Yes.
has organized a meeting with various other elected officials to which Scranton City Council has been invited.
I hope you have the opportunity to attend and see what might be done, because we need better mass transportation, not cutbacks in mass transportation. Remember, people lose jobs, you're going to lose tax revenue, and you're just going to have to pick up the bill for people who can't support themselves. This is what we call in the Army a bohica moment. You know the term bohica? No? Bend over. Here it comes again. That's a bohica moment. But enough about Colts. We'll be watching how that goes in the next few weeks. I noticed that on Halloween, most appropriately, Governor Corbett signed the changes to Act 47, which means the clock is ticking for the city of Scranton. Whether it's 5 years, 8 years, whatever the number ends up being, we're not going to be distressed forever. So I hope that that is kept in mind as we look at the budget. There's not much I can say about the budget tonight because I haven't had a chance to review the actual document. I just saw Mr. Lockwood's summary in this morning's paper. It was nice getting up, going to the door, taking in the paper, and seeing that my real estate taxes are going up 19%. That was fun. But, and also looking at that there are going to be some additions to the staff. And those have to be looked at closely. Apparently they want to offset them with reductions in other areas or fund them with grants. That's all fine and well. I just hope that whatever staff we have, the people have the right skill sets. I don't want to get up here every week again next year and ask you what's the status of the city budget for 2013 and 14 and 15 and so on and so on, okay? I would love to see the job descriptions for everybody that's a city employee, especially those in the business administrator's office. Are they required to know governmental accounting? Okay, I don't know. I'd love to see those job descriptions. I don't know if those are online or if those are accessible to the public, or maybe we can get them with the right to know request. But we had a shortfall this year in terms of preparing the budget. We didn't have people that had those skills. We need to have that corrected for next year, or all we're going to do is shoot ourselves in the foot. So I will be back next week. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the document online after you introduce it tonight and look at it closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Wallace?
Good evening, Council. Bob Wallace, Scranton.
Good evening.
It's a little disturbing. I took a look at your budget, and you know, I've taken a hard look at where Scranton is and where Scranton's going, and I see Scranton going in the reverse. The last couple days, I've attended the Colts bus hearings and listened to the people who rely on our mass transportation. I want to ask, has anybody from council attended any of these meetings at all? Okay. I think it was your responsibility to be there because this is about the city, it's about our citizens. To hear these people talk about how are they going to get around and what happened that caused this. Same thing that's happened in this city. Fiscal mismanagement and cronyism. I asked the question over there. Over $6 million on ghost ridership was done. Yet, if somebody walked over at the mall and walked into another store and took a shirt off a coat hanger and put it in their purse, they would be charged with shoplifting and probably look at 2 years in jail. Yet there's been no prosecution or an attempt to prosecute the theft of $6.5 million. For whatever reason, still stolen money that has to be paid back. Because if it wasn't stolen, we wouldn't have to pay it back. It would be a gift. Yet I ask, where's the Attorney General? Where's the District Attorney? Where's Scranton City Council pushing that a prosecution take place? That the people responsible for helping demise this city even further and kill Saturday business because the buses aren't going to run on Saturday. That's an impact here on the city. And this is a responsibility of all our elected officials to stand up and be counted. And it was disturbing, let me tell you, to listen to these people. I took my time, and a lot of other people took their time. But I saw very few county or state representatives there. And these people are walking away. So I think we should stand up and be counted. And Mr. Goff, it was kind of funny. As I stood in the mall and saw how empty it was, and you had made the statement in the past, and I'm not here being argumentative, okay? I make things happen. That's the difference between me and a lot of other people. We want to bring a casino here, and you called it a Herculean task. The only Herculean task we ask of you people is to participate in making it happen, because it's the revitalization of downtown Scranton. I'm not concerned about Wilkes-Barre. I'm not concerned about the Poconos, what they do or can't do. But we have a ghost town mall in the city of Scranton that could bring life here. You're building an intermodal terminal. What are you going to put in there? Empty spaces? Because there's nothing to come here for. And yet we have a budget that you want the people in this city to keep paying and paying and paying. I bought the Holy Cross Church to save history in this city. Right now I have a $46,000 tax bill on me because it was assessed for $500,000 because I wouldn't sell the Holy Cross Hall back to the diocese that a district judge in this city had made a deal to buy it for $2 but never filed his deed because he was waiting for the city to tear the church down and make it a parking lot. That's what's wrong in Scranton. It stinks. It's like the landfill up there. It stinks. I came in here and I supplied this council, keep it in mind, remember that, a lab report showing what was going into that landfill. Yet I didn't hear a single comment from anybody on this council. Yet you just heard about pancreatic cancer and other issues. Those carcinogens that I showed you are cancer-causing issues. Yet nobody stood here and stood up and went to the Dunmore Council and defended our health and welfare in this city. And there's a meeting tonight. Is anybody going to it? To defend the city? Are you going to defend maybe putting the leachate line in the budget that they pay us as a host community to put more money in our pockets? Are you going to amend the budget to put in a fee across everybody in the city that includes the nonprofits to bring the additional millions of dollars in here? And those are just for openers. Windmills on the mountain. Lower electricity for our people in the city. How about looking at some of the land we own and putting gas wells in? You can't just sit here and be in the blind and just write and ask everybody to pay the city of Scranton debt that was created from council after council and the administration in the past. You guys can't bury your head in the sand anymore. You got to run the city like a business. And unless you run it like a business, you're going to be bankrupt and you're taking it out on the people in the city. Just remember what's going on with Colts and everything else, and then stand up and be accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolus. Doug Miller?
Good evening, Doug Miller, Scranton. Without having had a chance to review the budget document in its entirety, because that has yet to be made available to the public, I did take some time earlier today to just briefly peruse some of the summaries that were put forth to the public. And again, without really having had to really get into a whole lot of detail with the budget, it's quite apparent that it's nothing more than another pathetic document come forward that just continues to place burden after burden on the residents of this city. We've had one failed plan after another come forward. We listened to Amoroso, we listened to Balzoni, and all these other individuals that came forward stating facts that we were already well aware of, or at least I hope we were. We talked about the need to cut the budget by 30%, and that didn't happen. What we have here is a 19% tax increase. We want to now triple the LST tax from $52 to $156. We want to now add more positions by funding them with grant money. And that's a real pet peeve of mine, is, we look at these budgets and year after year, how much longer are we going to continue to function our city on grant money? Don't you think that's kind of embarrassing that we have to fund our city on grant money? What happens when that grant money runs out? Because that does happen. And then what do? When you look around, we really are a laughingstock. And it truly is embarrassing and frustrating to come forward year after year and deal with these positions, because we just continue to kick the same can down the road. We listen to people on this council. We have council members talk about how their opinion can be wrong but never be false. We have Mr. McGough, who thinks his expertise is more relevant than a judge. To think that we even had the audacity to go back and appeal the commuter tax is just absolutely absurd. There's no common sense behind it. Because you knew one thing, you were putting a punishment on people that weren't responsible for our mismanagement. But why did we neglect the commuter tax again? Because you knew that you'd have to put it on the residents of this city. And you knew darn well you weren't going to do that. But you don't have a problem putting a 19% tax increase on them. Why don't you, for one day, maybe this weekend, gentlemen, you should go to the city, okay, and knock on doors and talk to the seniors who struggle on a daily basis. Go talk to the single mothers, the fathers, all the people out there working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and look them in the face and justify a 19% tax increase. And you all think it's a joke with your smirk. But you buried them last year with a 57% tax increase, and now you're going to bury them again with more taxes because you people are incompetent. There's not one independent person seated on that council other than who showed at times Mr. Gaughan, who's been willing to stand forward and challenge various things that have gone on in this chamber. But other than that, we have a council majority that's just going to continue to carry the water for this administration, and that's not going to change because you haven't shown one sign of independence. And it's really frustrating. It really, really is sad. It's a sad state of affair. Forget this budget, forget the nonsense, because if you're not willing to make drastic changes and drastic cuts, then the only thing you should be doing is going down to Lackawanna County Court with a bankruptcy petition and get it over with. Because you've had a chance to make real significant changes here, and you failed to do it. Putting it on the same people, going to the same people year after year with your little handout bag and asking them to give something they don't have is a waste of time. And you should have figured that out by now, at least some of you, because for some of you, this isn't your first stint here. And for those that are here, the newcomers, you live here and you understand the challenges the city faces. And it's unfair to punish those who had nothing to do with the incompetence. Unfortunately, there are voters out there that made decisions based on things that weren't really relative to fact. We let politics and political affiliation and yard signs and a whole lot of other silliness influence elections. Reality just doesn't take place in city government. We have mental midgets on the Scranton Times comments who want to tell us how to do things. They have all the answers. Let them come down here and make their comments. You know, I listen to a lot of the speakers that come forward every week, and I have a lot of respect for a lot of them because they're dedicated people who come down here every week. A lot of them unfairly get picked on by a lot of these geniuses out there that have all the answers. Well, come on down. Come on down to council. I've been coming here for 12 years. Mr. Morgan's been coming down here for 20 plus. Mr. Spragley and Mr. Bowles has been coming down. You know, when we had a chance to put somebody independent in that seat, and this isn't anything personal with Mr. Evans, but out of all the candidates that came forward in this latest vacancy appointment, there was only one candidate that stood out that was independent and who's been coming to this podium for decades, who's probably more in tune with the way government functions than most of the people seated up on this council, to be quite honest. And that's Mr. Morgan. And when you had a chance to put somebody independent up there, you chose to be political, as usual. And that's when we have to ask ourselves, are we basing our decisions on fact and what's right to bring independence in this city? Or are we going to yet again do the political thing? And I think we know the answer to that question. I think the best thing to do in the next election is maybe, as Mr. Morgan did for Mr. Spraglia, when he went and got him signatures to put in his name on the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Maybe I'll go next time and get signatures and put Mr. Morgan's name on the ballot and bring independence to this city because...
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
You're welcome, Mr. McGough. And I would really appreciate when I come forward that I don't need council members laughing and snickering. Let's be professional here. We have serious...
We are.
And I don't think they're laughing.
We are. You're the one that abuses the time.
No, I'm here to come forward. It's my right.
Thank you. You're abusing it even more. Ron Elman?
Well, I make merry to see you gentlemen again. I use gentlemen as a courtesy. Please forgive me tonight. My back is killing me because of this weather, I think. I mean, it really is. I'm all stopped up. My back hurts. I know it's not old age, so I can blame it on the weather. You know, I find our absentee mayor and 4 of council, because I think Mr. Goggin is more in touch with his constituents. Truly just a disappointment, to say the least. There's just nothing positive coming out of these meetings for me. It's the same old fall back on the taxpayers because they're defenseless. Like I keep telling you, you just in a different circle than most of the people, like a third of the city is. In today's paper, it just killed some people. It's just terrible news for a lot of people. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we elected you 5 people and a mayor, but we got Mr. Armoso running the city, telling us what to do. He's dictating everything. His name's in the paper more than anybody else's. I didn't vote for him. I don't know anyone voted for him. To me, he's just a waste of time and money, and I don't know who's paying him, but I hope it's not any of our tax money for him because he hasn't brought one minute positive thing to this city, not one. If he has, I'd like to know what it is. You know, the last meeting I mentioned King's College is paying the city of Wilkes-Barre taxes for 10 years. Why couldn't they also try to do something with these vermin that run these colleges that just been stealing our property blind? $4 million at Lackawanna. He hasn't done nothing about that. The tax raise isn't going to come near between now and the end of the year. What else is going to be stolen from the taxpayers? I asked Mr. Hinton, I told you at the last meeting, a simple question. I asked what the building permit costs for the new university building. He refuses to divulge any information to me. You know, I don't have a computer and I don't know how to get all that stuff. But like I said, I used to phone Mr. Setzinger and he'd tell me everything. What is so secretive that they won't divulge this information to me? I don't know the legalities, but why couldn't someone talk to Mr. Blake and the commissioners about giving us some relief on the county taxes, even temporarily? We're just not going nowhere except raising taxes. It's costing people's homes. It's costing all this abandonment. The neighborhoods are in decline. I keep complaining about my neighborhood. There was couches on the street for a couple of weeks, and finally one of them got picked up. There's cars at all the sidewalks because there's no curbs, because HUD gives the money to developers instead of the city. It just keeps going on and on and on like that. Then when you pay for 3 or 4 inches of pavement, you get like one. As soon as Main Avenue was paved, it was falling apart. They put in those cuts. In less than a year, the cuts were just deplorable. They froze and everything else because they had too much chalk in them to keep, so they would dry fast. I don't see why somebody can't talk to the school board and see about a surcharge on the people that got children in school instead of raising our taxes over and over and over again. You know, there's people that haven't had children in school 10, 20, 50 years. I talked to people that 50 years they hadn't had a kid in school and they have to pay taxes. What good are you guys doing? You're not helping us. You're not doing nothing for the city, for people like me and a lot of others out there. You know, it's just going downhill. And let me say one thing else before I go. I'm just like everybody else out here. I can't stand having to pay the police and the firemen these millions of dollars, but we are blessed with a hell of a good police department and fire department. I was watching them on TV today fight a fire. As much as I hate to say it, I think they're worth every penny that we have to give them. I really do. And I don't have no tickets or nothing I want taken care of. I really mean that. I thank you for letting me come up here again. Sometimes I want to quit coming, but who would keep you on your toes, you know? Especially you. I'll give you a headache again.
Not yet.
I got some aspirin in the car. Thank you for allowing me to talk, Mr. McGaugh.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. You know, listening to Mr. Ellman and some of the other speakers, you know, I don't know how many people read history or have really any grasp or understanding of it, but even Rome fell under the weight of its own corruption. And You know, we can sit here and we can laugh and we can pretend that things don't matter and that we can keep making laws and keep pushing people to the limit. But I don't think we should ever forget how this country was born. And we ran the British out of this country. And now we have the state police charging Mr. Freen with, I don't know, trying to start a revolution. But you know something? I hear a lot of people in general saying how disgusted they are with their country and their government. And then I see the people the city's elected to lead us, and some of them smirk and smile as if the administration of government is a joke, and it most certainly is not. And you know, we look to our elected leaders to find solutions to problems, but not to create them. And that's what's occurred here, and in many places across our country. It's just a terrible place we've come to. It really is. And you know, we've blamed so many people for our problems, especially in Scranton. You know, we blamed Sister Adrienne Barrett for bringing the poor people here. You know, we blamed landlords for the decline of the city. But we've never really had a council or a mayor willing to admit that they've misadministrated the city, that they've caused all these problems. We don't have a city government willing to push this government into bankruptcy. We're going to keep going to the poor and pretending that the poor can keep giving when they can't. I don't know, I think it's beyond the point of being able to give anymore. We've got the mall almost collapsed. You know what I'd like to see happen? I'd like to see city council to do a petition to the county commissioners, all right, asking them not to allow Colts to cut its roots or to eliminate Saturday service. I'd like to see a proactive council who understands that things have to change, and sometimes in government, one branch of government has to stand up against another, instead of saying we're not going to cross into their circle. Because I really believe the government believes that the school district believes that at some time you're their serf, and then, well, the council isn't going to say anything against the school board, and the school board isn't going to say anything against the council, and the county commissioners aren't going to say anything about either party either. So where are we at here? We just keep going. It's like having a magic flute. We just keep following that flute right down the road, right off a cliff. And you know, pathetic thing is that the residents in this city allowed this to happen. They've been staunch Democrats. They've done such a great job of really making sure that competent people were elected. And I'm not saying that people here aren't competent, but you know what? The council can override the mayor's budget. They can do that. That's why, Mr. Wessler, when you were finance chair, I thought it was important for you to share your responsibilities with the other four remaining council members, because, to be honest with you, I knew this day was going to come, and I knew no change was going to come. I am thankful for one thing, and I'll be very honest. I think Sapa is the way back for this city. But you have to ask yourself one question. Do the people we've elected know how to make Sapa work for the residents of this city? That's the real question here. Because you know something? You can take a pot of gold and hand it to somebody, but it doesn't necessarily mean they know what to do with it. We've got real problems that need real solutions. Pretty suits aren't going to help us. Doublespeak isn't going to help us. Ignoring problems isn't going to help us. You know, and the sad part is that every time our rights are extinguished by a government body, it goes to the High Court, Supreme Court, any court, and they find out that, yes, you know, your rights were suppressed. Why should you have to wait to go to a court for them to tell you your rights were suppressed? And it's happened over and over and over again. And my question is, are we really a free people led by a government, by the people and for them? Are you for us, the people, or are you our enemy? Are you a thief who comes into our house and steals off of us, and when we call the police, they ignore the call? We have to ask ourselves, has any of the taxation and any of the legislation that this council and in general governments handed us lately done anything? Don't forget, America, when I was a child, had a lot of jobs. Politicians moved them out of the country. We've created our own problems politically, and now the political class doesn't want to answer. Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Good evening, David Dobson, resident of Scranton. Taxes paid, fees paid, and now I've noticed on our budget schedule we have a EMT tax going up once again, and hopefully that will be progressive, because if you're making $15,000 a year, it's 1% of your paycheck, 1%. So if you're making minimum wage, you're at, 4.4% for city taxes. And I'd like to thank our state officials. Once again, they put the court question into play. Do we ever have the right to assume that this money is going to be collectible? It's a shame, and it's really not you guys, it's them, not you people. They put a question in there on everything. And I'd like to point out once again, being redundant, sue to replace tax-exempt monies to nullify the PA Constitution on tax exempts. If we have to go to federal court, there's 25 to 30 small cities in our same predicament, and it just seems that the counties love to locate tax exempts into these cities, and then when the trouble starts, well, every year it's 20-30% more taxes levied on your property. That's where a landlord has a good use. You can just get out, other than being stuck with it. I can't even withhold my taxes if I disagreed with that, because I wouldn't be paying on my mortgage, of course. So even if I wanted to play Johnny Rebel, I couldn't. And I'd also like to point out, earlier this week, the county has given another tax forgiveness or loan forgiveness to the Chamber of Commerce, once again, to move businesses out of Scranton. We've had two major businesses, and these businesses that are being located in Oliphant and Moosic require cars to get to. I'd like to point out that a recent ad in the paper, a Honda Accord, 60,000 miles, $16,000. How in the heck do you pay for that? That's a whole year's wages for somebody making minimum wage and more, because they're going to have Social Security taxes and everything else deducted. And we really need, in this next year, I want to see it, we have to start collecting delinquent fees on trash and other city fees. It's wrong. You don't have to go in. You could put a lien against somebody's property. You don't have to go in and collect the money if they don't have it. But when somebody owns multiple properties and they are not paying these fees, it's a considerable burden on people. I don't know how somebody could have the nerve to sign up for a post on city council and owe a couple $1,000s in back trash fees. Shame on them. I'd be ashamed to do that if I were them. And I see the mall at Steamtown on 5K. Well, Mr. Boskov just donated $150 to a failed gubernatorial campaign. Fortunately, the money didn't do any good, but that's about 8% of that loan, which is probably a subordinate loan, and we're stuck holding the bag once again. So do what you have to keep the mall open, but it's time that we start to tighten the vice. And on a final comment, the golden parrot goes to all those people that didn't get off their ditty box last Tuesday and vote, and especially in an informed manner. I don't know how they expect democracy to survive like that, but that's the way it is. Don't bother approaching me at the shopping center if you didn't vote, and talk about all the troubles in the world. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Andy Sprague, says Scranton, fellow Scrantonians. In January, I addressed you and said, I expect nothing out of you but higher taxes. And you didn't, you come through. You did going to give us higher taxes. But what else did you do? You give the banks a Christmas present. You gave the university on their parking a pass. You gave the amusement tax cut down. And these are the things you did. You did nothing to relieve the problem of the city. There is no relief from the problems of the city. Now, I read in the paper that you were thinking of some way, after you push everybody's tax up, knowing that they can't pay, to take their homes quicker under a different plan. Is this your reason for raising taxes so high? That people can't afford to pay the taxes on them, so you can really get in there real fast? And you mentioned that. And that's not right. That's not right. People should have as much time as the law allowed to pay off their taxes before you step in. You don't have to accelerate it. We're already in trouble as we are.
What are you speaking about? Land bank? Did I speak about?
In the paper. You didn't give the full details of it, unfortunately, but you did mention you want to accelerate the way you get homes.
Will you, I understand. Could I interject for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think you're under the assumption that people would get kicked out of their homes and not be allowed to pay their taxes. That's not it at all. It's vacant and abandoned property. It would speed up the process so that the city could go in and not have to deal with clearing the title and going through a sheriff's sale. It makes that process a lot easier. No one gets booted out of their home. That's the farthest thing from the truth.
You know what? You have good intentions, but for some reason it doesn't work quite that way out.
Just
when people can't pay their taxes, they're going to be assessed and they're even being forced out. Don't say it doesn't happen.
I agree with you, but the thing that I spoke about 2 weeks ago has worked across the country. And myself and Mr. Evans are exploring the possibility of it, so it's not a done deal.
Well, I hope not. I hope you don't have any intentions of buying some of these properties up either, because that's a problem too. Not that you get into the real estate business.
No, it's a public entity that would be buying properties. But again, these are abandoned, delinquent properties that have been abandoned for years. The last thing anybody wants to see is anybody taken from their house because of taxes or foreclosure or any reason.
And if this did go through, you would have a public meeting just as we're sitting up here. They'd be open to the public. There'd be minutes and all of that. So there's...
I don't know. It sounds a little dangerous to try to accelerate anything for people's properties. Because I saw ladies come here before and said they had paid their taxes, but in the meantime, they had their property sold because it didn't clear through. I have watched a lot of that stuff. I've been coming here a lot long, probably almost as old as you are.
Right. I understand your concern, and if we do, move forward with this, I'd be more than willing to sit down with you and go through the whole process, if it gets to that point.
Oh, definitely. When that comes out before you, I'll read this in minute detail and look at all aspects of it, because you have to.
Right.
Now, you're thinking of bringing up Sapa again, which I consider sap. The Abingtons are making a sap out of us, and that's what it is. They want their air up there clean, and they want to dump everything down into us. That's the whole thing of SAPTA. It's not a program that we should be even thinking about. You should think about somehow combining with Dixon City, Taylor, Manuka, and things like that. Them are the people that we have to really associate. Like I told before, I can step 1 foot in Scranton, 1 foot in them locales with no problem. How far would I have to stretch my feet to get up to the Abingtons? This is the things you got to look at. We have to work with the people in the valley. And you made no effort at all to get out there to do them for the valley. That's where our heart is. That's where our people are. That's what the people you have to work with. The people of the Abingtons didn't want to associate with us. That's why they're up there. They didn't want to have us down. In fact, that's the whole idea. They want to have clean air up there. They don't care what happens to us down here. And we have enough problems. Well, I'm not going to get into much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Marie Schumacher.
Good evening.
First, because it's relative to the budget, I'd like to ask our finance chair, are the line items pure? We have a lot of, or several accounts. For instance, in 2013, the landfill fees were not paid with the understanding they'd be paid over the next 3 years. So is the money that's in the landfill now, how much of that is the 1/3 of the 3-year payment?
I'll find out for you. We had some discussions, but we haven't had a chance to go through the budget as we
Same
could.
with real estate. We had several unfunded debts, like about $15 million worth, that we were directed by the courts to spread over 10 years.
Right.
And come out of property taxes. Is the property tax item all of the property taxes, or is that less the money that was put into another account? And what is that account?
All right, we'll find out for you.
And then, okay, and 2 weeks ago, as long as we're on this, you promised you would get me the, you would provide next week, and you didn't meet last week, the number of, the percent of people who did not pay their trash fee.
I know that, Councilor Wexler, you had some information on that last week.
Yeah, those numbers aren't finalized yet because they're still determining the vacant properties. People are appealing their bills, saying that they didn't rent them. So those numbers aren't finalized yet.
And I just talked to Treasurer Wayne Beck, and he stated the same thing. The problem is that now people are coming in appealing the fact that their properties were vacant and they were sent a bill.
But of the bills that were sent out, how many, what percent have been paid? My calculation was roughly the same as other years, 75%.
Yeah,
and
we'll find out for you.
25% aren't paid.
Because I asked him that today.
Once again, that's something that we have to refine.
Yeah.
Because you can't get a true answer on it.
All right, we'll give you extra time.
Well, you can do it in fifth order if you have more comments. And Mr. Gahn, you said that the DPW will be picking up bags of leaf. What happened to our vacuum truck? I mean, I know a lot of people who have put their leaves out into the
street.
Practically the street in some instances. Are they not using the vacuum truck this year?
I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I will definitely find out about that.
Yeah, that would be of interest.
The notice I got
certainly.
was that they were picking up.
And
It said bags, but I'll double check.
The snow removal policy, is there a further breakdown, like sections of the city, or is it just on your trash day?
Are you referring to what they put on the city website?
What, no, wait, I'm referring to the leaf pickup. Is that going to be on the day, you said there's not going to be a trash collection?
Recycling day.
There will be no paper pickup next week.
Paper pickup, okay.
Yeah, so in lieu of that, they'll be picking up
So
leaves.
it'd be whatever day your
paper is, right?
is the day that they would be there. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, are we going to have a new snow removal policy?
Well, there is, I was working on one and have given ideas to the mayor and DPW Director Gallagher. They did put something on the website, although it's not exactly what I had envisioned. But, I plan on meeting with them again and, trying to refine what they had put on the website, because it's, in my opinion, should be a little bit more information and should be done a little bit differently. But.
Okay, well, it'd be nice to clue the public in on what's going on.
Right, and I definitely will.
And Mr. Rogan, a while back, you were going to go to and find out what happened to that Abdallah building that we put at least over $1 million slate roof on, and nothing's happened to it that was promised. What did you find out about that?
I did actually have some documents on the grants on that. I don't have them with me, but I will try to bring
Well,
those for next week.
what, I mean, you can tell me the gist of it. I don't need to see the documents.
I don't remember offhand that excuse me, I don't have it in front of me, so I will bring that for you next week, though.
Okay, and then I would like to talk also on the Keystone landfill. Is the city going to get involved in our behalf? Next week, I will bring you the pictures of what the mountain is that separates us from the trashville and see how much higher that mountain of garbage is going to be. And as the answer I got, I think I've told you before, when I went to that meeting down at the State Building and asked about the odor, because we get terrible odors when the wind blows the correct way, he said, well, you know, yeah, you're going to get odors, it's a pile of garbage. And I think, you know, you should be protecting our interests. I think our city engineer should be involved. He did not attend that hearing, and they were invited, everybody was invited. I mean, are we going to have any involvement, or are we just going to be cut off? Same as, and I'll just close with this if I may too. I called on the, because I couldn't make any of the direct meetings for the Colts buses, but I called to see what they were doing with the East Mountain bus. And they didn't even have a firm route that they could tell me. But the only thing they said was it looks as though they're going to be just going up and down Music Street. So it's not even going to be an East Mountain bus anymore. And I know several little old ladies that live there that are well over 90 that are still independent because of those buses. And for their food and for getting in and out. And it's going to be very bad if that happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council? Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If I'm repeating anything that someone else said, it's because I really didn't hear everything too clearly, so I hope you'll be a little bit patient with me. When I looked at the paper this morning, my peaceful day was absolutely...
I didn't mean to interrupt. Would you just give your
I'm
name?
sorry. I'm Rosemary Gallagher, and I'm a taxpayer in Scranton, 57 years. I'm not 57, I'm 84. But anyway, Wayne, you don't have to faint. But anyway, I really am so struck by the lack of equality in this city. I'm sure other cities suffer from the same thing, but through the years I have found out that there are two problems really. One is attitude, and the other is the fact that taxpayers are in a position of being an inverted pyramid. There are few of us, and we're supporting everybody else. And you know that really has to come to an end. It's not going to be an abrupt end, but I think we have to work our way to that point. The other day I read in the paper that there are almost 500, Wayne can check me out on that, properties for sale in this city, and that given the size of the city, that is an inordinate amount of people who want to sell their properties. But you know, it's gotten to the point where that's what we really have to do, and we're forced into it, and we don't like it. And I'm asking you to take whatever steps necessary to prevent that from happening. As far as the attitude is concerned, once again, oh, well, the property owners can support this. I can remember going to a school board meeting a couple of years ago, and the superintendent said, oh, well, we'll simply raise taxes. And I said, of course, that's what you want to do, because it's the easiest thing to do. We are like sitting ducks. You know, we can't run, we can't do anything about it except sell our properties, which we certainly don't want to do, and go ahead, raise taxes. But how many people are going to be able to afford to pay those taxes? And why should they? Why shouldn't the cost of running the city be a little bit more equalized? You know yourself, I don't have to tell you that the government, the seat of government is here, county, city, federal, judicial, and so on. I doubt that they pay taxes. They should be approached, and if it's legal, and ask them to pay something at least, just like we do with the university. We ask them to pay something in lieu of taxes. And there are other nonprofits that can pay a little bit, and if they can't, well, then they're free to move out of the city. They don't have to stay here. They are performing a wonderful service, let me tell you that. And I'm sure it's easier for people from the outskirts to come into the city than vice versa. But maybe they can make a suggestion about how they can share some of the expenses of the city. I noticed too that, so we have to change our attitude. I know Chris Kelly, that everybody just loves, has said on any number of occasions, and that's how it is. In other words, we're so accustomed to being taken advantage of that we just say, well, okay, somehow or another, we're going to have to come forth with this money. But it's getting to the point, really, I think we have about 20%, Wayne can help me out there too, at least 20% of the population is elderly, and isn't that's pretty close, if not too little.
Oh, it's quite that high, but we rank right up there with the highest in the country.
Yeah. So why do we have to do all this? I mean, we pay it our way, and of course we still enjoy the services of our emergency people, and I can't say enough about our fire department or our police department. I've had experiences with both of them, and they have been very, very positive. So they're worth what they get. But there again, I understand that the mayor is very close to the unions. I don't know if that's factual. But anyway, they have been given a tremendous amount of money, which they didn't earn. They got it because of interest. And I think they can be approached and said, you know, we appreciate what you do, and we really do. But you have to make $80,000 and $90,000 when the average wage here in the city is probably $45,000. I think somehow or another they can be convinced that if they're going to be really, what do I say, really involved with the city, which they are. I mean, that's where their living comes from. That they can give some of it back, or at least not expect raises in the future. And that's another thing too. Why do we expect to give people raises every year? I mean, you know, it just shouldn't be. They can't take it for granted. And I think we can borrow some ideas from the business community. That leads me to talk about the 5 people who are going to be hired. I don't know how we can do that in clear conscience, because I don't know what it is now, but when I was in the field, and I was a development officer, so I was raising money for everybody, 80% of different organizations pay, 80% of the payroll, of the budget, I'm sorry, goes into payroll. Whether it's still the same now, I don't know. But I don't know if we need that. You know, in the commercial world, if somebody is fired or quits or something else, instead of hiring somebody to replace them, they spread the work to other people. And we might want to consider that. So I hope I've offered some ideas, but I do want you to know that I'm very involved with the city. I love this city. I congratulate you for accepting the responsibilities you have, because they're very heavy. And so I do appreciate all of that. Thank you for this time.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you back in our chambers. Thank you.
She didn't hear you.
Didn't hear you.
I said it's good to see you back in our chambers.
Oh, thank you. I've been ill for about 3 years, so I'm sort of out of it. But I'm back into it. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Elaine Bozak. I'm a Scranton taxpayer. I'm here tonight to discuss the Sapa plan. I'm really concerned about the Sapa plan because I've done a lot of research on planning associations over the past 4 years, which led me to a topic that is very well known now. It's called UN Agenda 21. The United States attended the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. That's where all of these planning sessions came together. They brought these ideas back to the United States, and on June 10th, 1992, curiously, Scranton is declared a distressed city. President Clinton, 1 year later, signs an executive order for the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Sustainable development came out of the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. In 2000, Governor Tom Ridge signed the Smart Growth Law, which is Acts 67 and 68, which you well know is directly tied to the Sapa plan. I'm concerned because what I've researched has brought me to a website entitled Democrats Against UN Agenda 21. They're traveling across this country. They are based in California. They've been fighting sustainable development and land planning for the past 10 years. They have a website. They have speakers that will actually come out and inform the public about their planning commissions. And, you know, we're under the assumption that we have a choice with Sapa, but do we? It is already a law. It's smart growth. Tom Ridge signed it into law in 2000. So where's the choice? Now, this has created many problems across this country with properties. Cities going bankrupt salivate over these plans because it seems like it's going to be a salvation for them. And it actually turns out to be a nightmare. More and more people are losing their properties. It's funny, Mr. Sparagula mentioned about Falls area. They were the first one, by the way, to get into the Sapa plan. He talked about them wanting to keep their air pure. Well, basically, that's the truth. Because the Earth Summit focuses on environmentalism. Actually, it's radical environmentalism. They want to see all of the suburban areas brought into major urban areas. Multiple housing units. Take, for example, our project on the 500 block of Lackawanna Avenue. That's a perfect example. This is one example that you'll hear the Democrats Against UN Agenda 21 talk about. You have the cityscape, narrower lanes for driving. You have empty storefronts with multiple apartments on top, which usually the storefronts are empty. So I want people to start doing some research before we actually take a vote on that. If you're not aware of the connection, I would suggest that maybe you take a look at it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Fifth order, 5A, motions.
Mr. Wexler?
Thank you, Mr. McGough. This evening, I'm not going to get into too much specifics on the budget because we just received it yesterday, just like everyone else does, but just a few comments on it. I would like to thank Business Administrator Dave Balzoni and the administration for giving us a workable document that we can use for analysis in evaluating where we're going to go with this budget. I also think it's a useful tool that the average citizen can also work with. I also would like to, that my first glance at it is that the projections and of revenue and expenses seems to be fairly accurate and based upon the most current information that we have. And I think in any budget, that's what is the basis of a good budget. I anticipate next year's budget, as we talk about all the time, our audit's not complete. I do anticipate next year that the audit will be done on time and we'll have even a better tool for making our next budget. One thing that did come to mind as I looked at this, the tax increase is significant. I felt that it was something actually that should have been done last year. We're kind of making up for lost time as we look at this. And part of that problem has been is that the past budgets were not based on accurate information, and we also went several years without any tax increase. And to me, looking back at it, that is something that can't happen. There's always increases in expenses. We also increased our salaries. We increased a lot of things without tax increases, and now it's time for that to be paid. I'm also thinking that since the budget's not finalized yet, and I know this is not a popular idea, I also think that we should take a look back at the commuter tax. The commuter tax, for the reason being, is that, as we heard tonight, senior citizens are going to be adversely affected by this property tax increase. The commuter tax is spread over all the workers and is spread over all the salaries. And I think we owe it as an obligation. It is an option provided to us by the state. I think it is something that we should look at again. In regards to the additional employees that are being added to the budget, for the most part, those employees are being added to address a lot of the concerns that we hear at council. In order for us to operate efficiently, to enforce our ordinances, I do believe that we need some more help in that and some more professional management to assist us in running the city. And like I said, and as we get into looking at the budget more, we'll have more comments next week. I also would like to touch on the HUD loan. Once again, this is another problem, a financial problem in the city that we are obligated to pay. And I would like to thank Senator Casey for his assistance in helping us get that spread out over a longer period of time. And I'm sure Mr. Rogan is going to speak about it a little bit more. And it also leaves the possibility open that the mall associates will eventually help us pay out that debt. In regards to the question about the garbage fee and percentages of people that are paying it, I have been talking with Wayne Beck and Dave Bolzoni most of the year about getting a more efficient reporting system for collection of the garbage tax. And they have been working on it also very hard. The problem being is that the percentage is hard to calculate because there is only a number of the amount of bills mailed out. And the payments are not kept track of in an efficient manner because you don't know if the whole bill was paid, half the bill was paid, or if none of the bill was paid. Then we also have the problem that all the bills are mailed out to everyone, and every year they have to demonstrate to landlords, they have to demonstrate by use of their electric bills if the property was rented or not. And they have almost into the end of September to get that information in. So once again, we're at the end of the year and we don't have an efficient picture of where we were in mailing of the bills and our efficiency in collecting them. But it is something that I have been working with the administration on and with the agency handling this, and I'm hopefully that next year we'll have a better reporting system. Thank you, Mr. McGough.
Mr. Rogan? Yes, thank you. I will be fairly brief tonight as well. First, regarding the budget, obviously we just received this document very recently, so council will be reviewing it before making more in-depth statements, but just a couple observations after a quick glance at the document. One thing, and this is going to echo what Councilman Wexler said, one of the things the city cannot afford to repeat is what happened 2 years ago when city accounts went dry. And we couldn't afford to pay our police officers and our firefighters but minimum wage. And by looking through, I could tell that Business Administrator Bolzoni put a lot of work into it as far as getting the projections to be realistic. And that's something that for the last couple of years, I remember I voted against the budget 2 years ago because of the reason that the things that were put in the budget were completely off the wall and they never materialized. So it needs to be realistic that the numbers that are put in this budget will be obtained. I think the issue actually a few years ago was the commuter tax. The commuter tax was put in prior to receiving any approvals. And on that issue, I do also agree with Councilman Wexler that that's something that the city should continue to push for because it will reduce the tax burden on the senior citizens and the working people in the city of Scranton. Also, the same goes for the increase in the LST tax. I do support that because instead of putting the burden on property owners, this tax will be paid by workers, city residents, and non-city residents, which is important to get money from those who do commute from our city. But I'm sure we will all have more to say about the budget in coming weeks. Next, regarding the item on the agenda for the HUD loan with the Steamtown Mall Associates, I did speak to Linda Abley and OECD Solicitor Gene Hickey today regarding that And to sum it up, basically, instead of paying the money that's owed to HUD in one lump sum, like we had to do earlier in the year when we had to go through and cut programming money for different programs, this will be spread out over a longer period of time. So we could still continue to fund many of those programs in the community, and some of the more popular ones that we see the results of every day are neighborhood police patrols in our neighborhoods, paving in low to moderate income areas, and demolition of hazardous structures in low to moderate income areas. So we would hate to see a year without any of those activities. So by spreading it out over a longer period of time, it does give us some leeway to continue with many of those programs. Finally, regarding Sapa, Sapa will be up for, as Mr. McGough mentioned, for a final vote at next week's meeting. I voted against the Sapa plan about 3 years ago. I will be voting against it again this time. I have not been convinced that this plan is in the best interest of the residents of Scranton. As mentioned by some speakers at the council meeting tonight and at previous meetings, all the pressure to adopt this legislation has come from outside of the city, from groups, as Mr. Spraglia mentioned, in the Abingtons. I just don't see how it would be a help to the city. I think we have our own planning. The city should look out for the city first. The Abingtons have a lot of say in the Sapa plan. What they want for the region isn't necessarily what the people of Scranton need. I'm sure we will be commenting much more on that issue next week when that comes up for a final vote. That is all I have for tonight, though. Thank you.
Thank you. On the budget, of course, I just received the hard copy this evening, and quite frankly, I can only comment on what I read in the paper today. But my first comment at this early stage is that I signed on to a plan that called for an 18% tax increase in year one, not a 19% tax increase. While we are very close on this, it is something I still want to look at. Any reduction, no matter how small, is extremely important to our property owners. Additionally, I felt a large omission is the lack of the 1/3 reduction in the mercantile tax as called for in the Omarosa plan. The reduction and ultimate elimination of the mercantile tax must happen to foster economic development in the city. We can no longer simply tax our way out of this situation. We must send a message to the business community that we are listening and that we are open for business. Of course, this could be remedied by imposing a payroll tax as allowed for in the revised Act 47 legislation recently passed by the state. Its implementation, which would be revenue neutral in year one, would eliminate both the mercantile tax and the business privilege tax with a broader, fairer tax that has proven to increase revenue in other cities that have adopted it without increasing the tax itself. I will be asking the administration to commit to the payroll tax and implementation within the first quarter of 2015. I will continue to beat the drum for the following, all of which are part of the plan. Pension reform. It must happen soon. Inaction on this issue will lead the city into receivership and ultimately into bankruptcy. Reassessment. The state needs to make changes to the laws related to reassessment that would allow for creative approaches like rolling reassessments tied to the property value increases once a current reassessment is done. However, the fact of the matter is that Scranton property owners are getting crushed because there has not been a reassessment in over 40 years in Lackawanna County. Our assessments are totally out of line with real estate values with the rest of the county. Continued inaction by the county should lead to action by the city. On pilots and tax-exempt properties, I believe there are far too many properties that should be taxable that are not. I believe that many of these properties would not pass the HUP test that determines this status and should be returned to the tax rolls. And I also believe that Lackawanna County should request a parcel-by-parcel review of every tax-exempt property in the county by sending a letter to the property owners asking the owners to substantiate their exempt status for each parcel that they own. These are just the types of initiatives that have to be taken to create positive changes on behalf of our property owners. With that said, I'm sure my colleagues and I will have some great discussions and debate on the budget in the coming weeks. And I would like to compliment the mayor and B.A. Bolzoni and his staff for presenting what appears to be a very realistic budget with few, if any, pie-in-the-sky numbers. So thank you again for that. I'm going to take a little bit of a detour from normal comments to discuss the Keystone landfill expansion. I want to make it clear that my comments are my personal opinions, and I'm not speaking in any way for my fellow councilmen on this issue. I would also like to say that I have a deep respect for all that the DeNaples brothers and the DeNaples family have done for our communities over the years. While I certainly wish that this was just a Dunmore issue or just a Throop issue, it is not. It is so much bigger than that. As a fiscal conservative, I could applaud the deal that Dunmore Borough has negotiated. As a councilman and as a Scrantonian, I surely understand the financial stress that is put on our local governments. However, as a human being, as a father and a grandfather, I still have tremendous concerns for what this could mean to all of us over our lifetimes. What will be the long-term health impact? What will be the impact on our environment? What will be the impact on real estate values? And what will be the impact on the overall economy of all of the Northeast over the life of this contract? The concerns expressed by numerous citizens and Dunmore officials seem to have been swept aside in this new agreement. A good deal has compromise beyond enhanced financial benefits to the host community. This deal still calls for a 50-year expansion. It still allows for 7,250 tons of trash to be deposited daily, with a large amount still coming from New Jersey and New York. And it will still lead to a 470-foot mountain of trash. A good deal? Sadly, we may not know, and we have to wait 50 years to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to read a letter that Council received from PennDOT regarding Dalton Street and Kaiser Avenue. If we remember back to August, we had residents from the Kaiser Valley in over some problems in that area and businesses that were having problems with traffic on that street. The letter was sent by Tom Piccarella, Assistant Traffic Engineer and Signals of PennDOT. The letter reads, it was addressed to our City Clerk, Lori Reed. Dear Mrs. Reed, this is a follow-up to our September 9th, 2014 response letter to your concerns about trucks turning onto Dalton Street from Kaiser Avenue in the city of Scranton, Lackawanna County. Our engineering consultant has completed their evaluation of what modifications or improvements could be made to Dalton Street to try to accommodate larger vehicles and what the additional costs would be. Based on the findings, the department has decided to proceed with modifications to the intersection to accommodate the larger WB62 vehicles. This will require modifying the signal equipment, the curbing, and additional roadway widening, which we plan on completing sometime in the spring. If you should have any questions or additional concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. Mr. Lewis, who has a business in Kaiser Valley, was concerned, so hopefully this takes care of that concern, and we thank PennDOT for their support and their help. Secondly, I would like to just give an update on the fall 2014 paving project in the city of Scranton. Right now, all work is expected to be completed by Saturday, November 22nd, as detailed by the contract, weather permitting. The only part of the city they have left to pave is the Weston Field area. I received a complaint about a dangerous parking situation in the 1100 block of Morrell Street on the intersection of North Washington Avenue and Morrell, which is right by Marywood University. I contacted Chief Graziano, who sent a highway corporal to assess the situation. He issued a recommendation to install 2 no parking here to corner signs near the intersection with North Washington Avenue and Morrell Street. A request was sent to DPW to install these signs, and I'd like to thank Chief Graziano and our DPW director for their help on that matter. And the rest of my comments I will reserve until fifth order. Thank you.
Just very briefly, as other council members have mentioned, we have not had really adequate time to review the budget and the proposals. I will say that we have council, myself in particular, we have been kept informed as to the process and have been involved in the process of formulating this budget to some extent. Many of the ideas have been discussed as to how to proceed with the budget. Certainly not everything that council has asked for or looked at has been included in the budget, and over the course of the next couple weeks we will continue to formalize the budget so that there is an adequate and respectable working document moving into 2015. As for the particulars, there are a lot of things that have been proposed as far as the budget is concerned. It seems, and I've said before, that many of these proposals, or all of these proposals, affect someone. Whether it's a senior citizen, whether it's a commuter, whether it's the working person, someone is affected by these proposals. We talked about that in the budget proposal is the tripling of the LST. Well, that's fine, but tripling the LST has a greater effect on someone making less money than it does on somebody making $100,000. The EIT, or what you might call a commuter tax, is that more equitable, where you're taking a percentage so that the person making more money is paying more. How do where do you decide? So all of these are things that come into play. Mr. Evans mentioned the payroll tax. Payroll tax has been looked at. One of the things that we thought was that the payroll tax would address nonprofits. Find out that possibly that's not true, that they may be exempt from paying a payroll tax were it initiated. So is it worthwhile to pursue that if we're not if it's not targeting the people that it should? So again, we will continue to look at many of these items in the budget and hopefully arrive at something that is manageable, and for all of the residents of the city of Scranton. Two other things that have been brought up: the Sapa legislation. Yes, we will be voting on that. Again, we will have a public hearing on that, a presentation from the people that are part of Sapa, and at that time we will decide whether council feels and whether the city feels that this is a worthwhile opportunity. As far as the landfill is concerned, the city has been involved in the discussions that have gone on, because it does affect the city of Scranton. I taught history for 35 years, and if history teaches us anything about sacrificing our environment for the almighty dollar, they don't have to look further than the Lackawanna Valley and what the coal industry did to this area. Yes, it produced a lot of money, but it also cost a great deal to the environment and to the health and safety of the residents of Lackawanna Valley. Is a landfill, is there a need to put refuse somewhere? Yes. And again, we come to a balance. At what point do we say no? At what point do we do we say no? The health, safety of the city, of the residents of Lackawanna Valley is more important than the economic value that this landfill may bring. We are concerned, and we will continue to be concerned and, again, be involved in this discussion. And that's all I have. Thank you.
5B for introduction and ordinance, amending file of Council Number 55, 2013, an ordinance entitled General City Operating Budget 2014 by transferring $41,500 from account number as noted, non-departmental expenditures, unencumbered expenses, prior year obligations, to the accounts listed below to provide funding to supplement the SALT account, monthly payments to Thompson, Reuters, Westlaw, and funding for miscellaneous office supplies for all departments through the period ending December 31, 2014.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question.
Yes, on the question. I did have a question about what Thomas Reuters Westlaw was, and we contacted the law department. It just, I wasn't sure what it was, and I'll just explain what it is for a second for anybody else who was confused. The law department has a $5,000 budgeted line item for dues and subscriptions. They subscribe to Westlaw, which is an online service for legal research to look up cases, and they also provide the law department books and booklets with updated federal and state laws. An average monthly charge for this service is $506. However, many times they exceed that, and the $5,000 total budget has never covered all their costs for the year. So I just wanted to explain that for a second. The legislation didn't really go into detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction and ordinance appropriating funds for the expenses of the city government for the period commencing on the first day of January 2015 to and including December 31, 2015 by the adoption of the general city operating budget for the year 2015.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question.
Yes, on the question. I too would also like to thank our business administrator and all the employees in that office and the mayor and the whole administration for putting together this budget. It obviously is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of work. Like my colleagues had mentioned earlier, we had just received this document, and I've had a chance to go through it somewhat, but not to the full extent to comment on it as much as I would like at this point. However, after looking through it, the one thing that I do find extremely alarming and disappointing is that there are no union concessions and no savings from the police and the fire unions. I was hoping that the savings from these concessions that are included in Mr. Amoroso's plan that the mayor had adopted would be reflected in this year's budget. Mr. Amoroso made it clear, and Mr. Courtright concurred, that there was a major urgency to get this done. And it's been a year now, and we know this is an issue. And as Mrs. Gallagher had mentioned, there's a 21% or 19% property tax increase. And it's going to hurt the elderly people, all of the people in this city. We knew it was coming. It's not a surprise. And when I look at this budget, I see that positions are being added, salaries are, in some instances, are being raised, some are covered by grants, and we'll look at that further. But I don't see concessions from the unions, and I feel that going forward, that's important. The time was now for that, and I think we dropped the ball on that. I was hoping that, as I said, it would be reflected in this year's budget. I know there are discussions. I'm not sure how long those are going to take, but this is a critical point in the city's history with the way our finances are, and I think that we should look for as much savings as we possibly can. And I will make further comments after I have a better chance to look at the document next week. Thank you.
One final thing, that the budget is on for introduction tonight. It's, I don't want to say a formality, but in order for us to make any changes, it is council's responsibility to introduce the budget, and then we can work within the framework of that, of what has been presented to us, to arrive at a final document. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction and ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted, entitled PAFRS, Pennsylvania Fire Recovery Service, for the acceptance of donations to Scranton Fire Department and payments from PAFRS in order to make necessary expenditures for the purchase of equipment and apparatus and maintenance of both.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction and ordinance authorizing the removal of the existing no parking signs located at the intersection of Harrison Avenue and East Gibson Street. We maintain the all-way stop signs and install new R7302 no parking symbol arrow signs.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction and ordinance repealing file of council number 11, 2014 as amended, and ordinance amending file of council number 74, 1993 as amended, entitled City of Scranton Zoning Ordinance of 1993 by changing the zoning map designation of the John J. Audubon School from R1A to INSG in the central planning area in the eastern portion of the City of Scranton, as said ordinance was adopted after an insufficient notice of public hearing had been posted.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, I'd just like to explain, as the title says, we are repealing this ordinance simply because there was a procedural error when it was done previously, and at the request of people involved, we are repealing this ordinance and starting the process anew. As you'll see in the next item, that it's really we're redoing the same legislation now with the proper posting. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction and ordinance amending file of council number 74, 1993 as amended, entitled City of Scranton Zoning Ordinance of 1993 by changing the zoning map designation of the John J. Audubon School from R1A to INSG in the central planning area in the eastern portion of the City of Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
I make a motion to table item 5G per the 30-day public comment notice requirement.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of tabling item 5G signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution accepting a donation of $1,090.51 presented to the City of Scranton Fire Department from Kildare Scranton Incorporated.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction, a resolution accepting a donation of 6 ton of 2B gray gravel worth $144 presented to the City of Scranton Fire Department from Concrete Steps Units Incorporated.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, I have no idea what 2B grade gravel is, but certainly would like to thank Concrete Steps for their donation to the city. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5J for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to enter into an amended cooperation and loan agreement with United Neighborhood Community Development Corporation, as well as a mortgage, promissory note, finance agreement, and any and all other documents necessary to loan UNCDC an additional $10,000 to further the new construction of a residential and commercial development in the 500 block of Cedar Avenue.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5K for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to enter into a promissory note and to execute any and all other documents necessary to refinance a Section 108 loan with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $1,865,000 in order to refinance a loan to Steamtown Mall Partners, LP, that matured in July 2014 and which was guaranteed by the City of Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 56, 2014, an ordinance amending file of the council number 188, 1994, an ordinance entitled Establishing the Rate to be Charged for the Use of Swimming Pools, Recreation Centers, Baseball Fields, and the Showmobile by providing for an increase in fees by increasing the fee for use of the Showmobile.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, no business at this time.
If there is no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned. Yes.
Just so I